Hello, hello. Hi, all. Happy Monday. I know you're like, wait, Angel, it's not Friday afternoon at lunch. Why are you popping up here on my live? Well, it's because I've been traveling and I'm actually here in beautiful sunny DC. In my hotel room, and we have got a lot to talk about. There is so much going on. And for those of you that know, obviously, I'm in the tech industry, the tech sector, and we are being hit hard. So I really want to talk about today corporate trauma, and specifically, we're going to talk about layoffs. So let's get into it. Yes, we are talking about it, and that means layoffs. That means that with the ebb and flow and the cycles of everything that's going on with the economy and the interest rate and blah, 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 blah. When I look back over my 20-year history in tech, I see how the industry, all the way back from the late 90s to the early 2000s, have followed this pattern, this cycle. And it's this, bring folks in, lots of development around apps or software, or changing over to a huge completely different platform, software as a service, you name it, all those acronyms. And an influx of bringing folks in, especially at that entry level position. And then after about somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years, those same folks are now moved up in the organization. So now they're managers, now they're directors. And when it's time for layoffs, guess what? That middle manager, that middle level, that's the one that gets hit pretty hard. Why? Well, that's the easiest, right? It's top heavy, right? So those are some pretty big salaries, and they're not necessarily individual contributors. So you can't tie their work directly to sales or product or support or what have you. So you get hit. And why do I say layoffs or corporate trauma? I mean, everybody's experienced it, right? Every sector, every industry. If you've been around long enough, you've been working long enough, the pink slip can happen to you. So two caveats I want to talk about. One, I've been on both sides of this coin, right? It is traumatic for those who stay as well. We're going to unpack that. And then secondly, there is another layer of tax and trauma that happens to folks that are of color. Okay, particularly women and people from underrepresented populations. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, first, when we talk about layoffs being traumatic, what is that? Well, when you just look at the regular definition of trauma, right, just looking it up, trauma is an emotional, and I want to stress, emotional response to an event. And unfortunately, y'all, that is the part that we don't talk about. We immediately go into work mode, active mode, execution mode, which is, oh crap, I'm laid off. I've got to get my resume together. I got to notify my network. I got to get my interview suit going, or at least, a jacket and here up now. And I've got to, get my recommendations, all the list, all the action steps that we do. We immediately can go into that mode. But I want to talk about something that we don't talk about enough, which is the emotional part of it, right? The sadness, the anger, the frustration, the hurt, right? I mean, at the end of the day, your feelings are hurt, period, point blank. The fear of, will I find something next? Will I find something next in a certain amount of time? Because there's this thing of, you don't want to be out there too long without finding your next thing. And so there's this internal clock that starts going off in your head saying, I can't be on the market for too long, otherwise I won't look desirable. Okay. And then the loneliness, right? You're embarrassed, even if you were a part of a layoff of hundreds or thousands of people. It's still, it's like, but I was one of the ones. And I can't really pinpoint why it was me, right? Was it a performance issue that they never told me about? Was it just simply sheer numbers? Was it just bad luck? You don't really ever know for sure. Rarely do you know for sure. And so you start telling yourself all these things and you have all these mental tapes going on. So there is absolutely an emotional response that needs some time to be dealt with and unpacked. And the one I want to talk about specifically is grief. And you're thinking, wait, grief? Angel, hold on a second. Nobody died. Well, grief, really, when you look at the true definition of it, it's really about the loss of something that has happened in your life. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of a pet. It could be the loss of something that you just have in your life that's habitual. And going to work every day and working with a certain group of people every day, day in and day out, is habitual. And for many of us, we've been doing it for years. So now it's become a part of our identity. It's become a part of who we are. When we introduce ourselves, we say, hi, my name is fill in the blank and where you work. Typically, that's how we operate in this society. Or you say what you do. So your identity is immediately tied to what you do and where you work. And when you no longer have that, that is a significant loss. So that is something to be grieved. Also, too, let's think about the interruption and the impact of being ripped from colleagues and coworkers that oftentimes have been shifted into friendships, right? I mean, you're spending on average 6.5 hours a day with these people, and you start to develop interpersonal relationships. You go out after work, you share stories about your children, your family, the highs and lows. If you've experienced a significant, death or birth or anything in your life, who are you sharing that with? Your colleagues, your people. And for them to be all of a sudden ripped out of your life and no longer there on a daily basis, again, that's the trauma for those that stay as well. Because again, like I said, I've been on both sides of the coin. You miss those people. You miss talking to them. You miss working with them. And it's hard to talk about because you feel guilty, kind of like survivor guilt, right? You feel guilty because you weren't impacted. You did keep your job. And so to reach out to them, it can be a little awkward, right? But you do miss that day to day, and they miss that day to day. And so there absolutely needs to be some time. So one of the things that I would recommend is that if you are reaching out to a colleague who has been impacted by the layoff, they are no longer there, and you want to connect with them. Yes, absolutely. Action steps of saying, hey, I'll give you a recommendation, or hey, send me your resume. I'll pass it on to my network. That is all phenomenal. Yes, thank you. But that's actually the second step. The first step that I want you to do is just reach out to them and from a human standpoint, say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Probably not. So let's talk about it. I'm here. I'm here for you to talk. That's it. That's all you have to say is, hey, I just want to reach out and let you know that I am here to talk whenever you're ready. That's it. And then let them guide to say, and then at the end of that interaction, of course, again, second step, absolutely offer some tangible, actionable help if they're ready to receive that. Okay. So again, this is putting the human back in something that has happened to us. Now, the second point that I want to talk about and unpack really quick here is around why layoffs and some of the thought processes, those tapes that are going on in your mind, why layoffs hit women and particularly brown and black folks harder. Okay. Now, here's the caveat. I know being laid off for anyone, regardless of your gender or how you identify or your color or your ethnicity, is not easy. Absolutely, that goes without saying. Don't comment, don't DM me on that one, okay? We got it. What I want to highlight and point out is the experience of women and the experience of women of color in particular when it comes to layoffs and what we now have to deal with. So first, it's now happened, right? And then secondly, you're thinking, oh, dear Lord, I've got to go through that interview process again. I got to go and convince someone else after I just got out of 9 times out of 10, a toxic environment. an environment where I wasn't supported. And now I have to potentially go into yet another one and start those relationships and do that all over again. It's another level of emotional tax that we're paying because it's not readily accepted. It's not like once you get through the interview process and you're hired, you're off and running. For us, we are constantly evaluating the environment for signs of toxicity, for signs of misogyny, for signs of, yeah, they're talking a good game, but I wonder underneath what they're really about. And when I get in there and when I land in there, is it going to be harmful to me? Will I not be supported? Will I not get what I need? Will I constantly have to prove myself? Just the thought of having to reestablish that network and those connections again brings heart palpitations and anxiety to us. Why? Because we're constantly assessing for, are they good or are they bad? Is this person that I'm encountering, particularly nine times out of 10, majority white male, are they friend or foe? Are they racist or not? Am I going to encounter a racist joke, or will I get too comfortable with them? Are they going to, let it slip, or a bad joke? All of those things, all of those tapes are playing in our mind because we've experienced them before. And now we're thinking, oh my goodness, I got to set up and walk into yet another environment where all of that might happen. It might not. You might walk into an environment and it's phenomenal, but just the thought of what am I getting myself into and having to gear up, literally gear up physically and mentally, prepare yourself for, again, that long interview process. And then once you do get in, what is it going to be like? So those are the mental hoops and jumps that, again, women and people of color are going through, in addition, on top of the mental and emotional that's happening from just being laid off or just having to be in this position where you're searching for your next, right? Which is absolutely high anxiety. And so thank goodness for me personally, been around the block enough times. So you see the signs, right? It's like kind of gets pretty obvious. So I was fortunate enough to land and be okay, and to have that, foundation and that next already lined up, but not everyone is. And so I really implore you, if you are, again, particularly a woman of color, that this has happened to, and you're thinking, I don't want this to happen to me again. I've been there. I absolutely have been there, and it doesn't have to happen to you again. And so I absolutely encourage you to reach out to me, connect with me and my team. We have a webinar coming up on November 9th where we'll unpack exactly some of these moves that I've been able to make. I want to share them with you and help you to get your next and your career breakthrough, whatever that might look like for you, okay? Whether you've been impacted by a layoff or not, okay? So thank you all. Again, happy Monday. We will be right back here on Friday. In fact, you know what? I might just pop up on a live again sometime this week. So just be on the lookout, okay? So that make sure you follow me here on LinkedIn or Facebook, or subscribe to the YouTube page, because I'm liable to pop up at any time now and give you some good juicy nuggets. All right, take care, have a wonderful week, and see you soon. Bye-bye.